again. Mr. Speaker, it's not often that I agree with Sir Roger Douglas, but his analysis of this economy as being bleak is exactly on the button, and his leaders' belief that the economy is broke is exactly right as well. The only thing that Rodney Hyde didn't do was he agreed that he needed to be with a national-led government, even though this government had broken the economy. He needed to be with this government because of his own political survival and that of his party. And this party agreed with him so wholeheartedly that one of them even stood up afterwards and took some applause, or gave him some applause. Mr. Speaker, this country is going backwards, and it's not good enough. We deserve a lot better. I remember last year, and it's been said before in this House, that John Key said, we are aggressively coming out of recession. Aggressively coming out of recession. At the budget, John Key talked about a step change. But this time he said, quote, there could be days when it's a step forward and half a step backward. There could be days when there's a step forward and then half a step backwards. This is step change John Key style. And he only got it round the wrong way. What he really meant to say was that some days there's only going to be a step forward and a full step backwards, because that's where the economy is going, Mr. Speaker. That's what a step change means to this government. Unequal. We are an increasingly unequal society. And I was amazed today in the House when the Finance Minister said that somehow, as a result of his tax switch, we were not a more unequal society. For those people earning $1 million a year get a $1,000 a week wage increase, and those people on the median wage get $15 a week. That means that the person who's earning $1 million gets $52,000 a year, and the other person gets $850 a year, not even 1 week's increase, and somehow that's not going to make us a more unequal society. Well, the analysis, Dr. Smith, is fine, but people listening to that will say that an analysis is simply mumbo-jumbo. Quite frankly, that is simply mumbo-jumbo. We are becoming a more unequal society, and the policies of this government are making it that, and the unequalness is an unhealthy situation for this country. We deserve better, and this country is going backwards. And then, Mr. Speaker, we talk about the aspiration, because it used to be a goal to catch up to Australia. Then it became an aspiration. It wasn't really mentioned in this speech this time around, because it's not really aspiration, it's more aspirator. A machine that sucks fluid out of the body, only this time it's Australia sucking our best brains and our best talent out of New Zealand. That's what aspirational means from the national government, Mr. Speaker. That's what aspirational means. And then we have the audacity of that government to turn around and tell us and the Labor Party that somehow our economic policies are all wrong. Well, let's look at some of the economic policies that Australia's put in place. Upper tax limit kicks in Australia on 180,000 at 45%. We're talking about raising the upper tax limit. That's radical, isn't it? Because Australia's got exactly the same thing. Oh, Australia's got no tax under $6,000. We're talking about bringing it in under $5,000. Well, that's radical, isn't it? We're aspiring to be Australia, but we don't want to take on any of their policies. And there's another one. They've got a capital gains tax. This government ruled capital gains out of the tax working group when it came along to actually produce it as a report. So what are we going to do? We're looking at ring-fencing the losses on property. And then the big kicker of the lot, Mr. Speaker, the big kicker of the lot, and the Minister of Science and Innovation, as it's now called, is in the House, scrapping the 15% tax credit on R&D. Scrapping that tax credit. And I can tell you, I'll tell you what happened, Mr. Speaker. We put the tax credit in place here. We put the tax credit in place here, and what did the Australians do? Well, as soon as the Labor government got into Australia, they came over here, copied it in its entirety, and put it in policy in Australia. And what did we do? What did we do? I'll tell you what we did. We put in vouchers and grants. Vouchers and grants in order to replace it. And Dr. Matt, and even his advisor, or the real Minister of Science and Innovation, Professor Gluckman, was telling me that they're oversubscribed, grossly oversubscribed. There's been such a great take-up. Well, of course there's a great take-up. Here's $2 million to those companies out there. Come and get it from us. What company is going to be stupid enough to say no? But the big question is, how many of those companies out there didn't get grants and vouchers that they would have been eligible for under the tax credit? How many? And that's stifling, Mr. Speaker, the very growth accelerators that this country needs. The New Zealand Herald said, and I tell you, all of those things are in place in Australia and working well, and this country wants to be like Australia. The New Zealand Herald noted in its editorial this morning, or it could have been yesterday, that 16% increase in people going to Australia. Now, this government campaigned in 2008 on stopping that flow, and this year it's 16% higher, or last year, than 2009. That is a testimonial of failure of this government in the economy. They're going over there, as I said, because Australia is sucking them there because of the things that it can provide. And those things are being provided by the very economic policies that this side of the House is looking to bring in when we come into government later this year. This country, Mr. Speaker, is going backwards. It's stuffed. We're not going anywhere. And what's the answer? Well, Catherine Ryan on Radio New Zealand, when she was interviewing John Key said, well, he gave the example of Asia. High-tech, high-growth economy, roaring ahead, manufacturing, all of those things roaring ahead in Asia. He said, we can supply them with food. Well, isn't that visionary? Isn't that extraordinarily visionary that after all of this time, after 9 years in opposition, in 2 years in government, and the only vision we've got for New Zealand's future is to supply Asia, that used to be behind us, well behind us, with food. That is extraordinary, Mr. Speaker. We need, in addition to our primary products, we need a high growth, a high value, a high tech, a green economy, Mr. Speaker, that will keep our children here and keep our young people here and stop them moving to Australia. It's not to say that our primary products are not important, but we've got to do a lot more to make sure that that happens. And that means changing the many things that are around the science and innovation area. And Dr. Matt knows that while he changed the name of Research, Science and Technology to Science and Innovation, it's only a name. Mr. Speaker, it's only a name. A step change in science and innovation, it was heralded as, and it's simply a 5% increase, and a whole lot of welfare to corporates who are just shifting, and I know this because some of them told me, all they're doing, Dr. Matt, is they are shifting a lot of their expenditure from their R&D that they're doing and buying all the other bits and pieces and going along to you and applying for the vouchers and the grants that will give them the money to replace them. That's exactly what they're doing. I mean, you talk about rorting. My God, I can't believe that this government is so naive not to see that's happening. If you want to see a real step change, Dr. Matt, have a look at Finland. Or have a look at Denmark that you quote prolifically every single speech that you give Denmark, but this government is not doing anything like what Denmark did. If you're going to quote it, Dr. Matt, then how about backing it up with a bit of action? Because you're not getting anywhere close to what the Scandinavian countries are doing in their countries. 3% expenditure on R&D, and we've got something like 1.25% in GDP.
Sorry to interrupt the member. Dr. Jackie Blue.